So today, we're talking about the architecture of a life. I mean, what's the actual blueprint that separates a life that's truly lived from one that's just a series of gestures? Let's get into it.
We're going to start right here with this quote. Now, on the surface, it sounds like some pretty straightforward advice, right? Just basic etiquette. But it's actually holding a much deeper key to how we live our lives.
You see, this isn't really about being a good conversationalist. The point here is that our ability, or more often, our inability, to truly listen is a kind of diagnostic test. It tells us something really important. Are we actually present in our own lives? Or are we just, going through the motions, just waiting for our turn to speak?
And this idea leads us straight to a concept from Anthony DeMello called the paper life. He tells this story about a student who only ever sees paper trees, paper flowers, and paper stars. Why? Because he's so trapped in his own words and concepts that he's completely disconnected from reality. It's a life of gestures, without any of the real experience. You're living life at a distance.
Okay, so how do we get out of that paper life and build something authentic? Well, we're going to follow 4 different threads that are all interconnected. They all kind of weave together and point toward this one central goal: building a real, authentic life. Each one makes the other stronger, creating this incredible architecture for living with integrity.
So, let's start with our very first thread, choosing performance over pretense. This is all about closing that gap between the things we say we believe and the things we actually do.
The management guru Peter Drucker really nailed this. He said, morality has to be practiced, not preached. Performance, you see, is about expressing your values through your actions, through the decisions you make every day. It's not just about talking a good game. It's the huge difference between the appearance of listening and the act of it.
And if you don't close that gap, well, the stakes are incredibly high. DeMello's warning here is it's chilling, right? Because it's so blunt. Living a paper life, a life of just pretending, doesn't just mean you miss out on things. It leads, as he says, inevitably, to a paper death.
That idea of a paper death actually leads us perfectly into our second thread. Now, this might sound a little morbid at first, but stick with me. It's actually the most powerful tool for focus we have, using death itself as a design principle.
When you read this from Leo Tolstoy, it's not about despair at all. It's this incredible sense of peace, of equanimity. It's a calmness that only comes from looking mortality right in the eye and just accepting the terms. He's not afraid of what happens next, because to him, either path is a good one.
And that right there is the key insight. Mortality isn't a problem we need to solve, it's a feature. It's a design tool. The Roman philosopher Cicero talked about this, how everything has its season. An ending doesn't ruin life, it's what gives it shape and meaning. Think about it. Autumn doesn't ruin the fruit, right? It completes it.
The tennis legend Arthur Ashe made this intensely personal. As he was dying, he wrote a letter to his young daughter, and he put his life into the context of legacy. He told her, "We are being watched by our ancestors. We must never let them down." He got it. He knew his legacy wasn't something that was going to be tallied up at the very end. No, it was being built in every single choice, in thousands of those tiny, ordinary moments.
And Ryan Holiday just distills this down to a question that, honestly, is kind of hard to sit with. Which one will you be? An example that protects the people who come after you, or a ghost that haunts them? Wow, that's a question that really forces you to have some clarity.
All right, on to our third thread. We've talked about these huge ideas, authenticity, mortality, but how does this actually work, day to day? Well, it all comes down to the pretty unglamorous daily work, the discipline of progress.
And this is not about some heroic overnight transformation. It's about the simple mechanics of growth. So, first up, aim for progress, not perfection. Slow progress is still progress. Second, practice moderation. Real discipline isn't about being severe. It's about being sustainable. Third, and this is a big one, you have to strategically sacrifice comfort. That's how you strengthen your mind. And finally, as the Stoic philosopher Seneca advised, choose how you react. Don't waste your energy returning a kick to a mule.
And sometimes that discipline looks a lot simpler than we think. Sometimes it's not about pushing harder at all. It's about knowing when it's time to rest and recover, because that's the only thing that makes sustainable progress even possible.
All right, so if you're doing all this inner work, practicing this daily discipline, what happens when you turn your focus outward and engage with the world? Well, that takes us to our fourth and final thread, integrity facing outward, what we might just call leadership. Simon Sinek has this brilliant, simple flip for how we think about this. So often, we see leadership as being in charge, asking, "What do I need from all of you?" But real, genuine leadership flips that script entirely. It asks, "What can I contribute?" It's a fundamental shift from taking to giving. And this brings us right back to Peter Drucker, because he argued that the true test of integrity for a person or for a company is in your personnel decisions. Who you choose to hire, who you promote, who you trust, that stuff reveals your actual values, not the ones you wrote down on some mission statement. There's just no hiding from it.
Okay, we've traced all 4 of these threads: performance, mortality, discipline, and leadership. Now, let's pull it all together into one really powerful metaphor.
This Arab proverb is just perfect. Now, on the surface, sure, it's about being self-reliant, but for what we're talking about, it means so much more. The paper life we mentioned, that's a life lived at someone else's table. You're just consuming borrowed ideas, pre-approved opinions, and secondhand experiences.
So, building your own table means using these 4 ingredients we've been talking about. It's built from the integrity of your performance, the clarity you get from confronting your own mortality, the real, genuine labor of your daily discipline, and the outward-facing integrity of your contribution.
And that brings us, believe it or not, full circle. Right back to the quote we started with, but it hits different now, doesn't it? It has a completely different weight. It's no longer just about respecting another person. It's about respecting reality itself, actually listening. That's the moment the paper life ends and the real one begins. All 4 of those threads we talked about, performance, clarity, discipline, and leadership, they all funnel back into this one simple, ordinary, and incredibly difficult act. It's where all the work shows up.
So I want to leave you with this one final question. If listening is the key to everything we've talked about, then maybe the ultimate act of listening is to turn that attention inward. What is your own life, your own experience trying to tell you right now? And are you listening?